So, Dayna, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, which was an incredibly happy circumstance because we got chatting, didn't we, in the comments on a LinkedIn post, and then we took it to the DMs, and then we're like, let's get this podcast done because we clearly like the sound of each other. So this is the first time actually we've talked. So we're literally just let's just roll. Let's just roll. Get a podcast out the first time we talk.
Yeah, that's kind of my world.
So tell me a little bit about you.
How far are we going back?
Oh, I don't know. Where were you born? No, I'm joking. When
I was about to answer that as well, give you a whole rundown. So I'll do a little bit of past and then we'll concisely wrap it up and get forward to the present. So hi guys, my name is Dayna. I'm so excited. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where and when you're listening to this, because we don't know. It could be any time of the day or night. So I always like to start with a couple of things that people would benefit from having a context about me. So I'm the eldest child of four. She's like, me too, me too.
me too.
And my early years were quite up and down, quite tumultuous. I moved around a lot, and that's very relevant when we get to the present. Once upon a time, I bumped into a statistician, as you do, and data scientist at a networking event, and I was explaining to him about, my background, and he turned around and he said to me, "Oh, it makes perfect sense that you're so great with people." And I said, "Why is that then?" He said, "Oh, you would have probably met about 10,000 people between the ages of 6 and 13. I was completely floored and couldn't take in the information. He then proceeded to explain to me exactly what metrics he used, eyes glazed over,
Yeah.
to make this numerical, what made sense to him. But what I took from that was my early years really prepared me not only for the life that I would lead, but for the work I do. And the work I do is all about people, relationships, personality, and lots of other interdisciplinary, as I like to say. Seems so excited. The hair's going everywhere already. Expect that. I do like to move around.
Yeah.
So if we fast forward a little bit, I fell into business when I was actually unemployed and claiming benefits. Sick and tired of being at home, couldn't find a job for love nor money. I applied for everything under the sun, you name it, I applied for it. So I finally said to the job centre lady, "Look, there must be something you can do with me." And she said, "Oh, here's a course." Did a course, loved it at college, and the college owner asked me to do a presentation to the new students. And I was like, well, I've never done anything like that before, but okay. So I dutifully prepared something. And the group comprised of some students who were starting and some that were on the fence. I did my what was supposed to be 20-minute presentation, which turned out to be about 40 minutes.
Mm.
And everybody loved it. The students who were about to start were like, when can we start? And the ones who were a bit on the fence, they all signed up. So I was feeling rather pleased with
Like,
myself.
good at this sales malarkey, aren't
Yeah,
I?
I'm rather pleased with myself. And then everybody left, and it was just me and the director. And he said, "Oh, that was fantastic. Thank you so much." Gave me some good feedback and said, "Would you like to come and run the college with us as a director?" I said,
Wow.
"Yes." This was a Friday afternoon. I was on benefits, and by Tuesday morning, I was running a team meeting. And that very much is the arc of how my life continues to go, which
Mm.
leads us nicely back to where we started about my early years and being very chaotic and very up and down. I'm at home in chaos and complexity, but in a way that actually works for me now. I'm
Mm.
used to being dropped into wildly different circumstances. I went to 7 different schools between the ages of 6 and 13. I lived in about 5 or 6 different places. I lived in, I can't even remember, 3 or 4 London boroughs. So that moving around and meeting so many different types of people, and also this sense of not necessarily being safe and a lot of danger. I mean, I was a bus ride away from the British National Party headquarters, BNP. So
Mm.
I developed this ability to be hyper aware about what was going on in my environment. So I learned to literally codify people and predict their behavior, I think, out of this need to try and control the
Mm,
variables that I couldn't necessarily control when I was young. So
so
that's why I
fascinating.
always like to start with that bit because then it gives people a bit of a context and the now makes a lot more sense.
It does. You know what's really interesting? So my dad was in the army, so we did a bit of moving
Mm,
around. But I
yeah,
grew up in Northern Ireland during the
right,
Troubles. So
right.
it was like, we've got so much in common. We're gonna have to take
Yeah,
this offline afterwards.
we will.
But yes, that feeling of not feeling safe as
Yes,
a child. And yes, interesting. So
yes.
what are you doing now?
Oh God, that's the wrong question to ask a polymath. We're always
Everything.
doing, that's just like everything all at once. Everybody thinks it's crazy. We think it's normal.
Hmm.
I'm back in London now after kind of 3 years of being in St. Vincent in the Caribbean. We moved in 2021. I've come back not for the glorious weather, but
Hmm.
actually to start a double award master's degree in, you guessed it, interdisciplinary studies. Because
That's
of course,
exciting.
why do a Master of Arts or a Master of Science when you can do both together and study sociology and anthropology and coding and human behavior and cultural complexity and design thinking and systems? Of course, that's what you do, isn't it?
I didn't know that exists. That sounds like so much fun.
Yes, I mean, the university only opened 3 years ago, so it's still very new. The Times newspaper rated it the most radical university to open up in modern times.
Fun. I
Yes,
can't wait to see what you get up to because I think this is going to be
yes,
really exciting.
definitely so.
Okay, so where are we going from here? Relationships.
We are.
We talk a lot about. Oh, no, I'm going to let you talk about it because I was like, oh, this is really fascinating. So tell me about the
Mm.
three really, really significant relationships that we have at any one time.
Yes, so the three most significant relationships we have are, surprise, surprise, obviously the relationship that we have to self,
Hmm.
the relationship that we have to work,
Hmm.
and the relationship that we have with our spouse, significant other. All of the lived experience, because I'm a lived experience girl, and I like a bit of science splattered in there too. So all of the lived experience and the science comes together to really coalesce to let us know that where any one of these three relationships are out of alignment, our life's experience is out of alignment. That's the bottom line. So
Mm.
really for me and as a person who loves everything people and relationships, it's how do we get people to be more of who they are? And we have all of these buzzwords like, oh, authenticity and self-care and whatever. I really like to dispense with those or use them as an entry point and really get to the practical, okay, well, what does self-care look like? What does authenticity look like? And for me, authenticity is actually
Mm.
being yourself, which in the modern age is a revolution, especially in the technological age. So, what do I mean by that? Is actually investing the time to learn who you are on a fundamental level. So, breaking that down, what are your likes, what are your dislikes, what are your preferences, taking the time to really almost do a chronology of life. What are my life's experiences and how have they shaped me to become the person that I am today?
Hmm.
So I went and saw many years ago and a fantastic psychiatrist because I was struggling a lot mentally and emotionally. And the first thing she did with me was we did a chronological timeline right from the actual birth to the present day. And I could not understand why she was asking me questions about whether, it was a vaginal delivery or C-section. But because I was struggling so much emotionally, I was really rooted in, and understandably so at the time, I was very rooted in what the problem was, and that I must be the problem. So I remember once we started to get through this process, she said to me once, she said, can you see why things have ended up the way that they are? It's not that you're mad, bad, or sad. And when you're able to look at all of these experiences, she said, the only place you really would have ended up is here. And that was an emotional time, but it was also a time where the light bulb flicked,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not mad, bad, or sad, or completely loony. I've had a serious, Dr. Strauss, a very unfortunate event in a compressed amount of time. And those experiences have altered my relationship to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time we don't take enough time to inventory what has happened in the past, what's going on in the future, what do I like, what don't I like, what's my opinions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how has society, family, school, education, systems influence and program me? Can I separate? Am I even able to separate what is
Mm-hmm.
truly mine and what has been given to me? And especially from a familial ancestral point of view as well, we know that things are inherited in the DNA. Sometimes we're experiencing problems that are not even ours of origin. They've been passed down. And then we have the overarching, big mama and daddy of society shooting and telling us these things. And especially in the social media age, it becomes a really, really, really sticky process. So that's the relationship to self. Actually, who are you? And going through these process of working those things out. Another key one is work. And actually, the piece that I did to get onto the master's degree was examining the relationship to work more through an employee-employer lens and looking at we really need to redress that social contract. And if we looked at the relationship between employee and employer, some of the self-reporting from employees would fit the UN definition for domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at those relationships through that lens, how can we change? And how can we make the world of work understand that they have a responsibility to make sure that we're well? Because we all suffer from that. So
Yep.
that's one of the themes that I'll be examining through my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that we connected on, your spousal relationships.
Mm.
That really is going to determine so many things, your mental wealth, how you view yourself, what you do, your time, just so many different aspects. And as someone who's experienced intimate relationships and had a child where I wasn't married and unfortunately that relationship didn't work out, and then having a very, very, very just delicious husband, you know. But then we went on to talk about the vetting in the comments. I went through a process of understanding who I was.
Mm.
Who do I fit with? I'm an adventurous person. I'm a social butterfly. There's people everywhere. I'll go to the shop and I'll be like, oh, I was speaking to Daniel in aisle 6. So it doesn't work for me to have a relationship with somebody who's threatened by that because they'll be getting triggered every left, right, and center. So because I'd done that exploration of why the past relationships weren't working, and I had a clear set of values-led criteria,
Mm-hmm.
ladies and gents, not the looks and the this and that. Actually, what are my values, which lead on from who I am, and the core ones, they're non-negotiable. So I wanted to get married, for example. Family was a key value of mine. I would not have entertained a second or third conversation with my now husband if it was clear, because we had big conversations in the first couple of weeks.
Mm.
He was like, well, I'm getting married. Tick, right?
Mm.
So those relationships are so key. And in a society where we're so programmed to be very red, and we'll get into some of these colors, and to always be on the go, and what I call a very phallic masculine way. And I love the masculine, by the way, so that is not a diss. Love the masculine around here. In a very phallic, driving, very consistent. And the
Mm.
female energy is not that,
No, but we have
right?
to, apparently we have to lean into it. That was a raspberry. I
Well,
didn't fart.
I mean, if that's your choice, and again, I'm a red personality, like more action orientated, very high on the red scale, but I
Mm.
know when to, okay, it's enough now, which I didn't before. So it's not that it's wrong. I'm very, very red, but I'm very yellow. I'm very magnetic. I'm a bit like the sun. Disorderly comes out, it shines, and then it sets again, and it does the same thing tomorrow.
Hmm.
So I've learned through that exploration of who I am that actually when I get stressed, I start to lean more into the red to try and control things. That comes from the early years and that
Yeah.
early years experience. But the yellow is really where my ease is, where I literally shine, where things come to me. So living in a masculine, dominated, energetic world says to me, oh, that doesn't have any value.
Mm. That's why we call them soft skills.
Yeah,
It's
all
like,
of those ones that make the world
yeah, it's
go
like,
round.
yeah, they're like the really the crucial ones, really, let's face
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. They're the interpersonal and intrapersonal skills. So that's a little bit about those relationships.
I love that. So I am the same as you in
Mhm.
terms of the I always say I'm a bit orange. So yellow and red obviously makes orange, doesn't it? And the secondary
Yes.
colour, like, what are you talking about, you weirdo? But yes.
Yeah.
Um, no, it is fascinating. And I love that piece around understanding us
Mm.
because everything is against us doing that.
Mhm.
Because why would we want people that know themselves and know their preferences and likes
That
and
part.
dislikes? Because
Yes.
if you think about it, if we're not controlling them with fear and making them buy stuff because they don't like themselves,
Yes.
this I can't remember what the figures are, but the beauty industry that preys on women's insecurities is worth a lot of money. Let's just say
Bees.
a
Bees at
lot.
the end.
Yes,
Bees.
lots of bees.
Bees move into teas.
And it's
So
bonkers, and
yeah.
it's all about us not liking ourselves and not
Selves
liking each
and
other.
each
That
other.
nearly came out
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Because of
And
course, how could you really like others and love others
if you don't love
if you
yourself.
don't have an appreciation of yourself? Because we can, as we all have, gone into situations where we meet other fantastic people, and if we don't know who we are and we're not clear about, I love that clarity. We're not clear about who we are, where our gifting is, where our genius is, and where we shine. We can come into contact with other people, and it can make us feel my God, like I don't have a lot to offer, or they're better than me. And then we get into this what I call timeline Olympics, where oh, so and so's done this, that, and the other, and but we all have, again, not in a cliched way, we literally all do have areas where we are incredibly gifted.
Hmm.
I don't care what it is. You say, oh, well, we all have a genius, but nobody really explains what does that mean?
Mm.
It's usually the things that come easiest to you that you derive great joy from, that are under the radar, that probably have nothing to do with, or very little to do with your certifications, your
Mm.
qualifications, but we can all see it when we see a gifted person, right? There are some
Yeah.
people, one of my favorite examples is knitting.
Hmm.
There are some people who, boy, what they can do with a couple of sticks and some yarn is phenomenal, but they
Yep.
wouldn't think of that as a gift in the scenario of this world because it's not some sort of like, highfalutin thing and you didn't go and get a certificate. But a lot of people who knit derive great joy and they give joy to other people.
Hmm.
Now, if you know that and you can understand that, that does two things. You either can say, right, well, clearly knitting is something I need to be doing more of. So in a way that works with my personality and who I am, I'm going to lean in. The knitting is something you should be leaning into because that's a natural genius that you have.
Mm.
And not everything that is a natural genius or that we love needs to be monetized, people.
Oh no.
Everything does not need to be monetized. Caveat, however, is if you can work out a way to monetize it, more power to you.
Mm.
But I think we also need to disconnect this relationship that we have that everything must be productive,
Yep.
everything must be output, everything must be some sort of, financial transaction. But there are lots of different types of transactions. We're having a transaction right now,
Mm.
right?
I'm loving this. Knowing like getting to know more about you. I'm like,
Yeah.
how long does this podcast need to be?
We're transacting right now.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from the process of getting to know yourself.
Mm.
And the folks that struggle with that the most. So, by the way, guys, we're all different. We're all of the colors, red, yellow, green, and blue, right? The people who struggle most with the focus on themselves are people who have a green energy. It's a more feminine energy. It can be a man or a woman that has that energy. My husband is very green. He's a very nurturing man, and he's also a very masculine man as well. But
Mm.
he naturally prioritizes the needs of the us over the needs of the I. And then from our cultural context, that's very much how our culture derives. There's an African term called Ubuntu, which is
Mm.
I am because we are because I am. So our cultural center is about the communion, the
Mm.
family, the state, the nation. So that's a whole nother podcast about, African, Caribbean, First Nation, global indigenous people who are existing in these states that are in complete contrast. And I believe that's why a lot of us are very sick
Yeah.
because we live in a paradigm that isn't, not only is it not of our own making, and it's bad for everybody. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's only bad for certain folks, but when your way of moving through the world, the lens is through us, and you're forced to be in this unitary nuclear family. It's all about survival of the fittest and all of that malarkey is anti your very DNA makeup. That is never going to go down too well. Back to the
Yeah.
green folks. Obviously, a lot of women are very green. And we're
Yeah.
also socialized to be green
Yep.
and give up everything for the collective and put everything to the side and be a martyr. And I say no to that.
Me too.
No to martyrdom. However, the thing is, with all of our natures, and like I said, guys, we're all red, yellow, green, and blue. It's about understanding that our nature, if we're looking for a root way to achieve anything, it's through our nature, not against it. So worst thing you can do is, as a green person, is to try and be red, which is the dominant energy of society, followed by yellow,
Mm.
right? That natural inclination that you have for the we makes you a fantastic communicator, makes you
Hmm.
a great relationship builder. My husband said something the other day about raising funds for organization because he works in the impact sector, third sector, raising money. He said fundraising is about farming. It's a farming activity.
Yep.
And of course, it makes so much sense that he would use terminology like that because he's a green,
No, I love
right?
it. Yep.
So it's often that we are acting against, vociferously against our nature, or why am I like this? I need firmer boundaries. We can all do with firmer boundaries, but the people that struggle with that most are our green family. But in my opinion, we can learn how to firm up those boundaries
Yes.
in a way that still works for us and works for other people too. But
Hmm.
green people can get into rooms and get into places and spaces and influence the decision maker out front because they're often not the one that's out front, even though that's something I really encourage green leadership, that all of us, regardless of what our personality makeup is, because we can all learn to add skills, energy types. Not saying we should stay there forever because that's not going to work if that's not
No.
who you are. But we could all lean into creating space for others, listening, really to understand and connect, looking at things through a communal lens as opposed to an individualistic lens, looking at the long term and how is this going to benefit people. So green people, they can, proverbially grease hands and elbows and get things done. But the rest of us just don't have that way of doing it. And I feel like it's
Mm.
one of the crimes of the modern age that we're so focused on the red and the yellow way of being, bringing up that rear, that we miss. It's like going into a bakery and looking at the crumbs on the floor, and you've got all of this just beautiful tapestry of people. So as you can tell, that's something that's very important to
No, I
me.
love
So
it.
when I interact with everybody, I'm always like, oh, da, 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 da. But I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the greens because I feel like the way the world has gone, we desperately need that type of leadership. And
Mm.
for people who are not the red and the yellows to still feel empowered, because it is really empowering and expowering out to other people as well. And for someone who had early years where it was a lot about things that I couldn't control, so my personality somewhat adapting out, I always say to people, oh, you're very green. I said, but that's not my natural. I have to work at that. My natural inclination is to do some sunshine stuff, get out on stage, speak, and then get shit done. Get stuff done.
I love it.
My
Yes.
natural inclination is not, my first basic instinct is not going to be about how is this in the benefit. So
Mm.
I'm like a recovering red or someone who thought they were just red.
Yes.
So I've been able to develop myself and other people also, but keeping to the self, to add that as a cool toolkit to my armory. But it continues to be work because it's not natural for me. It's
Yeah.
gotten easier, but
Yeah.
I have to work to give people space to really be quiet and listen to really understand that on top of all my neurodiverse spaghetti mind that's always going at 5,100 miles an hour. So it's been a real test of my character as a person to say, well, I wasn't liking those outcomes. I don't think that's the way of the future. Let me adapt this way. But my husband, everybody just loves him. And I remember a girlfriend of mine saying to me, when she'd first met him, this was years and years ago, she's like, he's amazing. She said, I hope you don't mind. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. And that is the truth. And it's the green energy of things.
Yep. So my partner's also very high in green energy.
Yeah, there you
He's
go.
friends with everybody. So
Yeah.
we when we used to do networking events. So I
Hmm.
would, be there, greet everybody, butterfly the whole room, and then I'd be
Hmm.
like, right, I've done that now. And he would be literally sat with one person and
Yeah.
they'd have their life story out and
Yep.
examining it and they'd be best friends forever. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
yeah, so
think about that in the context of leadership and roles and building things and organizations. What a green leader can do
yep.
with that type of focus. Now,
Mm,
of course, like everybody, they have their challenges too. Sometimes it steeps over into a little bit too communal, but again, we can we can broaden that. We can buffer up those boundaries. We can have systems and processes in place. But like I said, they can grease any room, and they're all about that particular individual or that person. They develop people so well. And I believe that green folks are the secret glue in organizations, and they do a lot of unpaid work. They
mhm,
are firefighting in places without management and leadership knowing, and because they don't need to take center stage, because it's not the energy, they often get missed. They get
mm.
passed over. They don't get the promotions. They're actually, tooled up the person that's got the promotion. So we've got all this amazing people and intellectual property, and they know so many things. And often when they leave, things start to crumble.
Crumble.
So don't be surprised if you see some green leadership stuff from me.
I love it. I can't wait. So we've left a key color out.
Yes, we have. But last is by no means least, my blue brothers and sisters, logical, analytical, systems, process, meta. It needs to make it make sense. Make it make sense to me, right?
Hmm.
And this was the personality type that I used to struggle with the most. They're very task focused. So red and blue, task, yellow and green, people, right? So if we remember that, we're on a good one. And I just thought, oh, they want every single detail in the world. They want to go over it again. And it was only when I started really studying that I realized that's their superpower.
Hmm.
Blues, exquisite quality. I always say if I was going to get tailored clothes, I would look for a blue person because they don't know anything other than 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that's a basic standard. The rest of us are trying to, doggy paddle our way up to their standards. But that superpower is incredible if they have the right structure, the right systems in place. So if they go into a workplace, for example, and they have a red manager who's like, "We
Let's
employed
get
you
it
because we
done.
thought you're amazing. I trust you. Go and get it done." They will move at the speed of a rock,
Mm-hmm.
and it will come across like they're trying to be obtuse, like they're purposefully thwarting this project, and people get ever so furious, cross with them, unhappy with them. They're not doing it on purpose. That's what you get at the other side of the skill, right? They need to know, it needs to make sense. If you're going to make a change, for example, those are the first folks that need to be consulted because they need a little bit of a longer lead time.
Mm-hmm.
Once they're on board, you give them a system process that they need, let them ask the question, give them the detail required, they're off flying.
Yeah, it's
And we
really
rinse and
fascinating.
repeat.
I I'm the IT tech systems person for our business,
Mm.
and I can hyper focus. I always say that my hyper focus is a blue person,
Yes.
and it really hates being interrupted.
Oh, it doesn't. Just leave it alone. I always say to people, oh, but no, no, no. The quickest way to get a blue person to move quicker is through their genius, which is the
Mm,
system and process. So I will say when I work with blue leaders, for example, if you've got 6 weeks to do something, we need to take that down to 2 because they will measure and measure and measure and measure and measure and measure and measure right until the last second. It's just how they're made. The
mm,
reds will just be out knocking things down, getting things, and that's great when it comes to certain things. But we need everybody to make this baby work. So
mm.
cut it down to 2 weeks and then either create or adopt a system and framework to make a decision. Because them people can, I've never seen anyone go through like a flow chart. Ding, 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 ding. Yep, I know exactly what this is. But they think they need to speed up like a red person or a yellow person. That will slow them down because the core fear of the blue is that they're going to get it wrong.
Mm.
So the more they think they're going to get it wrong, the slower they'll get, the more frustrated they'll get, the more frustrated you'll get. Now we're all frustrated and they look like they're solid as a rock, as the song goes.
I
So
like
the
that
way
song.
to get them moving is system, process, framework, shorter deadlines, and then we're
Brilliant.
off. Because the core fear is about getting it wrong. Just like the yellow, the core fear is about being disconnected. So you'll see lots of people in, whether it's work or intimate relationships, one's a blue, one's a yellow. The blue's retreating, the yellow's going towards. Even with myself and my husband, we had issues at the beginning because I was like, right, I want to sort out the argument now. We
Mm-hmm.
need a little bit more time. And then the red, their core fear is being out of control. And then the green's core fear is literally, oh my God, everybody okay? Everybody all right? What's going on? They're the people that they'll go to a party and they will want to do thousands of things, and you'll say, sit down, sit down. Actually, the fact that they've done the thousand things now means that they can sit down.
Yep. It's fascinating. I could talk to you all day.
Good.
I was like, oh, this is really interesting. I was like, I am learning lots, so thank you. And I think
You're welcome.
what it might be useful to have in the show notes is some
Mm,
like a picture or some kind of explainer.
yes.
I think would be useful for people
Okay.
to refer to. So
Excellent.
we
Yeah,
can
we'll
we can
make
work
sure that
on
that
that.
gets done. Yes.
Perfect. So the last question that I ask guests to do is ask a question of our audience. So
Oh.
what do you want people to think about
Hmm.
going forward after listening to your podcast?
So it's interesting you use the word think because I was going somewhere and then you said think and I said, ooh, okay, let me change direction. So I'm really, really, really big on early years and child development, especially those
Hmm.
first 7 years. Can be up to the first 14, but the first 7 years. So I would like people to think about 3 tangible specifics that you can write down. So number 1, number 2, number 3. How did those first 7 years shape the person that I am in ways that I really like and in ways I wish that I could improve. So you're going to go back and you're going to look at those first 7 years. How do they shape me in ways that I really like? How do they shape me in ways that maybe I don't like so much, that I wish I could improve on those
Mm.
areas? And the reason why, kind of counterintuitively, I'm starting with what you actually do like, it's easier from a brain perspective for you to lean into those things. So it's positive. The brain opens up like an umbrella. And then we can dovetail once it's open to the things that maybe we're not so happy about. We don't really like that. We feel like maybe interfering with our life. So please do, if you feel comfortable under this episode, share with us or connect with us individually. We'd really love to hear, because that's
Mm,
really the first step to anything that's going on now, is to go back and
absolutely.
have a presence of mind
My brain's
and
already
make
done
it
it.
plain.
I was like, when you're talking, I was like, okay, that one, done. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. That is interesting. How
Yes.
my so James is a Gallup certified strengths coach, so we do a lot
Yes.
on the Gallup stuff, and I
Yeah.
can see based on
Yes.
my first 7 years in life,
Absolutely.
I went to kindergarten in
Mm.
Belgium, and they only spoke
Oh,
French. So I was an
yes.
English kid living in Belgium, going
Yes.
to a French speaking nursery, and
Yes.
that's my, that my adaptability strength is
Right.
you can throw me into any situation and
Yes.
I will figure it out. But
And we
that's,
can go so many places with
yeah,
that, because one of the
I
things I was really impressed about from the book, amazing book, people go and read the book, and I haven't been paid at all, was when you talked about, for example, white supremacy and
Mm,
capitalism. Now that's something that I don't hear many people make the connection about, but it makes sense that, if you had these things going on in your early life, right, we've got loads of
yeah.
conversations to have.
Well, I grew up in a country where I was actually hated by my
Yeah,
classmates because
yeah,
of my nationality. So
yeah.
I
Wild.
think that's a very interesting
It
perspective to
is.
have as a white person.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes, interesting stuff. We will have you back.
Amazing.
Just
Oh,
saying that. We
thank
will have
you.
you back. I could talk to you every week.
I know. And we'd have something to chat about
I
every week, I tell you.
I have
We would.
absolutely no doubt. But thank you. You've been an awesome guest, and I
Thank you so much.
feel so blessed to have found you on the internet.
Yes. We love a bit of when the internet goes the right way. So thank you so much. And
Awesome.
yes, please do feel to reach out and connect with me. My information will be below, but it's pretty much Dayna Byfield everywhere. DM's always open on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It's the best way to connect with me, because I love a good conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. She says not being able to find the button to stop the recording. I love it when this happens. I'm so glad I have a lovely, there we go. I have a